What is it like to be one of the greatest athletes on the planet? What is it like when one of the greatest athletes on the planet suffers an ATV accident that results in paralysis from the waist down? And what impact takes place when that athlete just happens to be outspoken, free spirit, and determined to make a difference? Welcome to the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brad Cooper, co-founder of the Catalyst Coaching Institute. Today's guest, six-time Olympic gold medalist Amy van Dyken-Rouen, has seemingly done it all, in spite of suffering from severe asthma. World records, the Associated Press and ESPY Female Athlete of the Year, one of Glamour magazine's top 10 women of the year, one of the 25 most influential females in sports. She's graced the cover of newspapers and magazines ranging from Time and Newsweek to Sports Illustrated, and has been a guest on shows ranging from David Letterman to The Today Show. Then, on June 6, 2014, Van Dyken was injured in a serious ATV accident that severed her spinal cord, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down and changing everything. If you've been pondering your future and would like to talk through what it means to earn your certification as a health and wellness coach through a respected NBHWC approved program, or if you're an employer looking for ways to support your employees' physical and mental health through the integration of meaningful, not check-the-box coaching, let's talk. Drop us an email, results@catalystcoachinginstitute.com. That's results@catalystcoachinginstitute.com anytime. You can set up a call, or if you're like our kids and you prefer to just email and text, we can do that too. We're here when the time is right. Now, let's take a deep dive with six-time gold medalist Amy van Dyken-Rouen on the latest episode of the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching Podcast. Amy van Dyken, unbelievable athlete, fellow CSU Ram. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to CSU people, right? Because sometimes I'll talk to CU people and it's kind of offensive. So this is lovely. We can actually have a conversation with like big words. It'll be great.
And we won't pull your husband in on that one until later. So
no, we will not.
All right. So in your description of yourself is free spirit, I beat to my own drum. From everything I know about you, and this is the first time you and I have chatted, but everything I know about you, that is the perfect description. Has that always been you, or did you discover that kind of along the journey as you got more successful, as the asthma started to be less of a factor, those kinds of things?
Always. I've always been a free spirit, always just kind of done my own thing. I'm an Aquarius, so that's kind of how we roll, right? I was always that kid where I wore parachute pants the year before they were popular, right? And then everyone started wearing them. And my mom's like, everyone's wearing them. I'm like, get rid of them, bring them to Goodwill. They're awful. So yeah, I've always been that way. I've never wanted to be quote unquote normal because that's not fun, right? Like just be yourself. And I kind of learned at a young age that being yourself is like kind of a cool thing. So just rock it out. And I'm thankful for my parents for allowing me to have that freedom, right? And to be my own person. I think now they roll their eyes at it and say, why did you do this? However,
what have we done?
Right, exactly. I broke my daughter.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So 6 gold medals, one of the few Olympians to only win gold medals. That's a pretty big deal. How has your perspective in your competition and accomplishments changed from, I don't know, let's say 2001, 2002 compared to today with this amazing, crazy, scary journey you've been on over the last 20 years? So incredible accomplishment, 2001, 2002, and then fast forward to today. How has the perspective changed from then to now?
Not much has changed. If I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I'm still extremely competitive. I compete in CrossFit, still to this day. So I still have that competitive drive. And I needed to find an outlet for it, because it got really, really bad in the house with 2 competitive people, not having an outlet for that competitiveness. Yeah. So I went out, and even after I broke my back and became a paraplegic, found CrossFit, fell in love with it, started competing. So honestly, if I'm to say between my 20s and my 40s, like not a lot has changed. Only I think my hair color.
What about your perspective on those medals? So you talk to a lot of Olympians. We've had some incredible guests here, and they're like, I'm not even sure where that medal is. It had to be in 01, 02. You had to be like, this is amazing. Like, this is my dream come true. I've I've arrived and I'm 23 years old. Right. How has the perspective on those accomplishments changed over the 20 years as, I hate to say it, but almost like extreme real life has hit?
Right. So not a lot has changed, because even when I won the medals, I've always said, if 6 pieces of gold change you that much, you're not really who you thought you were in the beginning. Wow. Right. So maybe reevaluate. So I've always had that feeling that it was my job. It's something that I did, but it's not who I am. And when you talk about where are those gold medals, right? I've got all 6 of them in a CSU bag, in a closet, in Arizona. Of course, it's a CSU bag. I mean, hello. It's the only thing that would actually be appropriate to hold 6 gold medals. But they're in a closet, right? And so, but I do that because if I go speak somewhere, or if I'm going to go to the hospital, right, the children's hospital, I want everyone to be able to touch them. Right. Exactly. I want them to have that moment, right? And it's just, the coolest thing is when a kid is just so not feeling well and just so down in the dumps, and then you put 6 pieces of gold on them, and all of a sudden that smile, you can't get it off of them. That's perfection. That's why they're in a closet. I know everyone asks me, why do you do that? That's why I do that. Yeah. That's super cool.
All right. So you stated, speaking of perspective, you stated the great thing about the Olympics has nothing to do with the medals. It's about finding something you love, working as hard as you can to be the best you can. How have you seen that play itself out outside of the Olympic piece for you, or even outside of the CrossFit piece?
Right. So, I mean, I was going to say we could talk about CrossFit, but let's go ahead and talk about another competitive realm that I'm in, which is broadcasting. I was on a national radio show with Rob Dibble. That was amazing. And so, I look at that, and that is also another competitive way to get it out. Right. I mean, that it's very, very competitive, and I love it. Every single moment of it. I love watching a swim race from a kid who I know has busted their butt, done everything they can, probably pinched pennies to get that swimsuit that they're in. And I want to call a race that they would be proud of, right? Yeah, not every race is perfect. Even if you win a gold medal, break a world record, anyone will tell you this, it wasn't a perfect race. Sure. So I will tell the things that are not right, but I also want to praise them, because just to be in that pool, in that moment, right, at the Olympics, we're calling these races, and it was so amazing. But again, it's also competitive. And so I will fight tooth and nail to show you that way is a better way to do it than this other person. So, you send in your tapes, you have your agent call. So it's still very competitive, which I think for me is really fun. So I really, really enjoy it. And that's how life has kind of taken on another turn, another, way to be competitive, another way to be the best. And yes, I work hard at it. You work hard at what you do, right? And so the harder you work, the easier it is in those game moments, right? And you can just let it go, which is a lot like swimming, right? You put in all these hours, and then you get to see it in the pool.
Well, okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. As an Olympian, the physical difference, the physiological differences between you and the next 2, 3, 4, 15 athletes is minuscule to nothing. What differentiated you? What was it that allowed you to get 6 gold, 0 silvers, 0 bronze? You were all in or all out. What were some of the things that you noticed in yourself, or you've had other people bring to the forefront that said, look, you weren't the best athlete, but you got the gold? Right. What was that?
I've always been one of those people where I love to show off. And we can go ahead and talk about the Aquarius thing again for a moment. But I love to show off. And so that is my moment to show off. There's no better place than worldwide cameras, right? Everyone's watching you, let's show off. But you're right. I was not a better athlete than these other women. They were probably better athletes than I was. But what I had that they didn't have, and I used it to my advantage. And a lot of people had a lot of conversation about it, and, whatever. But,
I know what's coming.
Mentally, I knew I was stronger than these girls. So let's go ahead and break them. Right. And so I did. The race for me started the 30 minutes before we actually hit the water. And that's in the ready room. Right. And I know a lot was made about Michael Phelps and all of that. But I mean, if they would have had cameras back in the day, I'd probably be in a lot of trouble. I would be canceled. I did a lot of things that I didn't cross any lines, but I knew I was mentally stronger. And I wanted those girls to be thinking about me, not their race. Because if they were thinking about how crazy Van Dyken is, and she's just a lunatic, and if we were out in the real world, I'd punch her in the face type of thing, right? So, you can't really do that in the real world, but I did it. And here's the thing, a lot of the things that I did do were for good luck, right? So I did it one time and I won. So like me scooping up water and spitting it in a lane, I did that in high school back in like 1989 and I won. And so everything from that moment was not that it's because I worked hard, it's because I did that movement or I had that thing on me. So anyway, mentally, I knew I could beat my competitors that way. And I truly think that a lot of them are afraid of me to this day, which is okay, which is fine. It's fine.
You mentioned Phelps. I've heard interviews with him where he had this huge letdown after it was done. Yeah. Did you feel that also? That's common among Nobel Prize winners. It's common among entrepreneurs. Did you go through that also in the early 2000s when you'd hit this pinnacle of life and then it was kind of like, well, what's next?
Right. And I know a lot of people do that. And I remember Michael going through that and it was really hard to watch him, but he had done things that no one else in the world had done. Right. My accomplishments. Yeah, I had world records. So whatever, you could say that, but mine wasn't as big as his, I was the first American woman to win 4 golds in 1 Olympics. Right. Which is not as touted as what he did was, if that makes any sense, right? So I was the female version of him, but still didn't get the clout that he got and still don't, right? Like people never talk about that record that's never been broken, only tied. But I knew no matter what was going to happen in those games, like I could walk away with a gajillion gold medals. I'm going to be like Johnny Depp, 5,000 alpacas, right? And I would still have retired because I knew that my moment was over and I knew that it was time to give someone else their moment. So I never had that let down. And I don't know if it's because I had prepared myself so well going into it. And just knowing that, listen, girl, you're getting up there, your body's falling apart. It's time. So maybe it's because I did prepare. Maybe it's because I've always looked at the swimming and the accomplishments, not so much as an accomplishment, but as that was the end goal of me working hard. So if you think about it in a newsroom, right, I work really hard on a package and then we air it. It's kind of the same feeling that I got when I was done swimming. So, there really wasn't for me that letdown at all.
Interesting. That's fascinating. We're doing some work on something we're calling pre-retirement. So it's those folks that are getting ready to leave their 40-year career. And I like what you're saying. I think there's a tie-in there. Let's talk mental health a little bit. Thankfully, something that's finally getting some attention. Yes. You're one of the greatest athletes on the planet. How do you mentally address the struggles that you now face when your body or the elevators or the buses or you name it, it's either out of your control or part of you, but still out of your control? How do you mentally, in the quiet moments, how do you mentally go through that? I know you know the right answer, like just you got to be tough and know you're going to be an example for people. And we know that and we know you do that. But in the quiet moments, what's going through your head there?
Wow, that's really interesting. I had my very first panic attack a few months ago. I was doing all this stuff, doing the CrossFit. I was studying for my LSAT. I wanted to, that was a lifelong dream. And something just happened, right? And so because of that, because that was the first time that happened to me, now in those quiet moments, it's a little bit different. It's like, you got this, you can handle this, you're tougher than this. But there are bad moments. We all have those moments, right? Where like you get home from a day at work and you're like, what am I doing this for? And I think in those moments, if you can really just kind of close your eyes and compartmentalize a little bit, roll that into a ball and look at it, right? And just say like, why is this bothering me so much? How can I react a little bit different or a little bit better to it? But I also this is another thing. I also allow myself like a fake conversation, right? So example, my elevator here in Colorado, right? We're in our condo and I had some groceries and this lady said, did you go to the grocery store all by yourself? And said it just like that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So my answer in my head, right, was different than what I said. I said, yeah, I did. It was great. And she goes, that has to be so hard. I'm like, well, it's hard for all of us, right? Like, whatever. I got back into the condo and I had the conversation that I wanted to have with her, right, in my head. So that's what I do, which I'm going to be so honest with you, it's so much better than like getting it out. I've learned this in my years. It used to be just like a diarrhea of the mouth, and then people were frightened. Now I can go home and have that conversation privately, and then we're okay. But that's what I do. And right, like, here's the thing. You don't need to get rude to people. Everyone's just trying to either have a conversation with you or get along in life. Right. And sometimes we say stupid things. So you don't need to like verbally attack them. But if you can have that conversation in your own head, then you feel like you've had it and you feel so relieved. The next time you see that person, you're like, yes, and I feed myself with my own fork. Thank you.
Oh, I love that.
You're like, why did I do this?
No, this is awesome. Okay, so love that. You started to talk about the quiet moments. So that's how you're addressing people from the outside that just are like clueless, don't know what to say, don't know what to do. In your own life, now you do go down and the elevator's not working, and somebody parked in the handicapped parking spot that, doggone it, it's hard enough as it is, but now you've got to go an extra block or whatever.
Yeah.
You're sitting on your couch. You've got to, at some point, you've got to just be like, why me? Like, this is just not right. Like, fair, whatever word you want to use. What happens in those moments?
Sure. And what's weird about me is I never had that moment of why me, right? I never did, because it happened. We don't need to dwell on it, right? In those quiet moments, sometimes I do literally sit there and go, this flipping sucks. Yeah. And I'm over it. Right. And then the dog comes in or the husband comes in and someone's driving me nuts. So we let it go. Right. But here's the thing, like, yes, I was paralyzed. Yes. Now I cannot walk, but everyone has a struggle like that. Right. And they always say that you'll never be handed more than you can handle. And I truly do believe that. And so I believe that I could handle this, maybe get out there into the world and educate people a little bit more about the things I didn't even know about. We all have something like that. Right. Allow yourself the moment to let yourself know that it sucks, right? I think if we can validate our feelings, it's a little bit better for ourselves, right? Because we push our feelings down so much during the day to either not offend or, not be so visibly upset or whatever it is. You're in the privacy of your own home and in the privacy of your own mind. Let it rip. That feeling has asked for a moment. Give it a moment. And then we can release it. But that's how I've always thought about things, right? Like, if you're mad, there's a reason that you're mad. Let's find out why. Let's fix it so that next time you won't be as mad, and it's taken a lot. Cause like you say, when people park in a handicap spot and run into a place and tell me, oh, it'll just be a minute. I'm like, why are you more important than me? Right. You're not. Right. And it's hurtful, right? And we all have those moments that are hurtful. So just let it go. Don't take it out on the person. I mean, I take it out on my Instagram, I video them and let's post it. But other than that,
everyone's like, okay, wait, what's the Instagram? Is it Amy? It's at Amy Van Dyken, right?
It is. Yeah. I'm not a smart woman, so I have to keep it very easy. Yeah,
it makes it easy for all of us.
Right. Everything is at Amy Van Dyken. There we go.
All right. So speaking of your Instagram, you and dogs, you and I were talking beforehand. We have an Aussie. You have one, right? Big black dog, right? What is it, a lab? He's
a pit bull, lab, shepherd, chow, omelet.
Oh my gosh.
He's amazing.
Okay, so let's walk down that path. You're in a wheelchair, you're taking this dog out, and I think I've seen some videos, you've been taking him out, you're good to go. I have trouble with our 60-pound Australian shepherd, and I'm not in a wheelchair. What are your secrets? Like, what how does this work when you've got, it sounds like 110-pound mix of energy? How does that work?
I make sure we have a really good relationship. We rescued him when he was 6 weeks old. So I'm kind of really the only mom he's known. And I treat him how I would treat anybody else that I would need to do something for me, right? Like, I tell him, we're going to go this way, which is right, that way, which is left. And I've worked with him since he's 6 weeks old. I have a belt around my waist, and then we have 2 leads that go out to him, one that hooks on his harness in the back, one on the front. and he will pull me. He knows what slow means. He knows what stop means.
That is
but it's like anything, like when you teach your dog sit or shake, it's just repetition. Trust me, I can show you I have broken fingers from being dumped out of my chair from this cute little black Labrador-ish thing. But we work on it, and I tell him what went wrong. And we work on that. And now he's just amazing. He pulls me everywhere. And it's great because I'm in downtown Denver for the summers. And the elevators, like you were talking about earlier, are broken a lot. So what I do is I hook homie up here and we go under the bridges and he pulls me up the hills. And it's really cool.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
But it's just normal communication like you would have with a human.
So we've talked about CrossFit a little bit. And I've got to ask you, do you still spit in your opponent's lane in the CrossFit competitions?
Everyone wants to know that.
I know.
I don't.
Oh.
And here's what's funny. I know. Here's what's funny about me. You can tell I've grown up, right? Because like I'm talking to everybody in the middle of the competition. I make sure I'm winning the workout. And then I'm like, come on, girls, you can do it. But trust, if I'm losing, you don't hear anything out of this mouth other than vulgarities.
All right. So regarding your paralysis, during a prior interview I was listening to, you said, I never expect to be in this position, obviously. But here's the thing. I am, and there's a reason I'm in this position. I think it's there to help other people. Flesh that out for us a little bit. You've touched on it in our conversation, but bring it out a little bit more for us.
So there's not a lot of people with disabilities are afraid to be out there, right? Because, and I see it all the time, people don't want to look at the person who's disabled because of the fear of, oh my gosh, I don't want to be like that person. So we ignore. Right. I feel, I had a voice before my injury. And so I felt that the reason that this happened was to kind of bring awareness to people who are disabled. And I feel like I've kind of done that, but I just feel like this was my path in life. And, I can look at it you can always look at it two ways. Either I'm going to sit on the sofa in my dirty sweats and watch the Housewives of Beverly Hills, which I'm not going to lie, that does happen sometimes. Or, I can be out there and helping people. So that's really what I want to do. And, I do these things on my Instagram called Teachable Moments. And what it is it's for able-bodied people, because a lot of able-bodied people are afraid to ask the question. So I'm going to be there to answer it before you ask it.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like this was my destiny. And I've noticed now we've got a lot of people in wheelchairs in commercials. We've got for Target, there's a little toddler model in a wheelchair. You won't see really a TV show without someone in a wheelchair, someone, be it in the background or whatever. And I'm not saying that that's, but it's awareness, right? So now more awareness is being brought and more people are coming out and being more vocal about, this is my disability and this is what I like and this is what I don't like. This is how my body works. This is how it doesn't work. And these are the things you need to know. So I love it. It's perfect.
Give us a couple, because you mentioned this person at the elevator. She was obviously uncomfortable. She was like blabbering at the mouth. But what the person who says, I want to try, I am not comfortable. I don't know what to say. Give us some advice. I'm a physical therapist, so that's my world. I'm like, good to see you. You got this. Can I help you at all? But what's some advice that you could give the person who's saying, I do kind of blabber at the mouth. I don't know what to say. I know this is a regular person. They just give us some guidance.
Right. So again, look at the person like a normal human being. Would you talk to this person if they were able-bodied? And if you say no, then don't talk to us. Something that I love is I've got some really cool wheels and some really awesome rims. They're purple. I love it when people come up and they go, those are so cool.
Awesome.
Thank you. Right. Like acknowledge it. Like, you know what I mean? Like whatever, right. Just say whatever you would say. Like your shoes are cute or whatever. But here's something too, I want to tell people when you're a child, because children are so pure, so innocent, and they just say what they feel. If they're staring at me or if they want to ask a question, let's let it happen, right? Let it happen because I will explain things in a way that's not like, oh, I was on an ATV and I spilled over and I broke my, no. Like,
there's blood everywhere. It was terrible.
It was off. I almost died several times. That's why I have this tattoo. It's okay, kid. Right. I would never do that. But what I do is I show them that I can do wheelies and that I can spin around on the wheelies. And I'm like, you'd like my purple rims? We can have a conversation. So the next time they see someone who's disabled, they don't really care.
Or
right?
a classmate or
Anybody. I mean, right. I mean, you've got kids that, have muscular dystrophy that are, in schools, like just treat them like a normal human. But I always think that's important to ask the question, right? If you have a question, ask it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And I know a lot of disabled people feel that way. Just ask me the question. Ask me how it happened. I'm not going to be graphic.
So you're not sick of that? Because to me, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to ask that. But for you, you're like, you know what? That's a natural question. Let it come.
Right. And here's the thing. I'm not going to say that all of us in the disabled community are nice human beings, right?
Sure. It's like any group. Yeah,
exactly. We've got, our super nice people that like, you need to go to the dentist after you talk to them. And then you've got the people who you're like, oh my God, seriously, like who pooped in their Wheaties. So, again, you can kind of tell who's willing to speak to you, and then you can have those conversations. But if you see someone in a wheelchair that you wouldn't talk to if they were standing, don't talk to me,
Okay. So this whole attitude thing, I don't know about everybody listening, but I'm sitting here going, this is awesome. I love this. And it's a attitude, wheelchair, no wheelchair, health issue, no health, whatever. It's something we can all adopt. Is it something that you had pre-injury? There's something about going through a major thing like you did that creates a different mindset, a greater understanding of what other people are going through, et cetera, et cetera. Have you always had a version of that attitude, or has this really grown out of this last 20 years you've had to go through?
Yeah, it's grown from the last 20 years. Absolutely. All of this that you see, I used to be so shy in high school because I was very tall, very skinny, very self-conscious about all the things, as we all are in high school, sure. Right? So I didn't speak a lot. So this has come from the last 20 years for sure. But the positive attitude, I think I've always had it, but it's kind of more happened since the accident, because I feel like I've been given a second, third chance. I died a couple of times. My husband found me not breathing and he got me breathing again. So I look at it like, obviously there's a reason that I'm still here. So let's make every day a great day because we don't know what's around the corner. I was coming home from dinner and I got injured. So it can happen anytime, anywhere. So I don't want to be known as a sourpuss. So I try to make it more positive and the world a happier place. And that has definitely come from my accident, purely.
I'd like to hear the real story. I've read multiple accounts. None of them get it right. Some of them have you by yourself. Some of them have Tom right behind you. Some of them have you in the same vehicle. It's always an ATV. It's always you. But those are the only two things that seem to be the same. Walk us through again. I'm sure you're unconscious, so you don't remember. But what actually happened with this horrific day?
With the accident. Right. So I also want to clarify, at the time I was 41, everyone was reporting that I was like in my 60s. So anyway, not that old, but you know what I mean? So what happened was Tom and we were up in the mountains in Arizona. We had a house up there and it's a golf course community, right? So you park your car and then you take your golf cart or your ATV or whatever. And that's how you get around. So we went to dinner. He was on his motorcycle and I was on my ATV. We could have walked. It was a half a mile away or a quarter of a mile away. So it wasn't even that far, but it was just something that we did. And we were going to come home from dinner. I was going to open a bottle of wine. We were going to watch Game of Thrones. I never drank the wine. We never watched Game of Thrones. So what happened was dinner was over. We go out in the parking lot. Tom was dilly-dinking around. My husband was dilly-dinking with his motorcycle. And I'm thankful for that because normally he took off in front of me. Had he done that, I wouldn't be here because he wouldn't have found me.
Right.
What happened was he's dilly-dinking. He looks up and he's like, what is she doing? He saw me going and he was like, there wasn't a scream, not a arms in the air, not a flicker of a brake light. And I hit a curb, just like a curb that you would see in a parking lot. And I went over a 6-foot cliff and he ran over and looked down and he could see that my back was broken from that high up and I was face down. And he ran down there, saw that I wasn't breathing, rolled me over very slowly. Thank goodness he was in ski patrol. And he lifted up to my neck to start doing compressions and breathing. And I started convulsing. Eyes went 2 different directions for about 4 minutes. He said I was very confused, didn't know what happened. I kept asking questions. Flight for Life got there. I kept asking the same question over and over and over. My eyes went, like I said, 2 different directions. So I get in Flight for Life, and my first responder was a guy who owns the CrossFit box that I was at earlier that morning, which was crazy. But he told my husband, he said, her head injury is really bad. You need to be prepared that when you drive the 4 hours to go see her, she's not going to know who you are. Right. Well, it ended up, I did need a lot of speech therapy. I do have a lot of problems with the brain. But the big thing was my back, because when I dislocated so that one of my vertebrae was actually, if you take a hair off of your head, cut it in half, that's how far it was from my aorta. So when I went into surgery, the doctor actually had me say goodbye to Tom. He's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I've got the best of the best in there with me, but it's just in case. So I said goodbye to Tom, and it was really crazy. But that is what happened. Wow. Right?
All right. Well, we'll clear up all those magazine articles that
Thank you very much. And I was 41 at the time.
Not 72.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to get the combination of your outgoing personality, free spirit, and the Balco drug scandal. So you're called in every time and just for background for people who aren't familiar with this. So Balco, that was the whole Barry Bonds thing, Marion Jones, Bill Romanowski, Victor Conte, et cetera. So every time you go into court, they tell you, if you're not asked specifically, just zip it. Like, don't talk. But you're Amy Van Dyken, so that's not possible. So do you wish you would have said more? Do you wish you would have said less? Kind of walk us through that experience, because I would have loved to be a fly on the wall the day of your testimony, because just knowing you as little as I do, it could have been quite humorous. So anyway, what happened? It could have been, but you're in front of a grand jury and you're about ready to vomit the entire time, right? You've got these prosecutors that are asking you these questions, and you're just like, and then, you're talking about someone you knew, like, a friend, and it's very, very uncomfortable. But, again, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was young. So I know open-ended questions, you answer how you would answer. And then those longer ones, yes, no. So I learned that. I wanted to throw up. It was just an awful experience. I'm one of those people where it's like, when it comes to my friends and stuff, I'm very protective. And so, it was a very, quiet courtroom when I was there. It was nerve-wracking. Yeah. And I just remember getting back on the airplane, and the only thing I wanted was 1 C's candy. And that's all I ate all day, because it was just nauseating. Yeah, it was disgusting. And I knew why people were there, right? It was already being leaked why people were there. And I was worried that the assumption of why I was there was different than why I was there. Right. And it was, and what are you going to say, So. Well, and you love reality TV from people that follow your Twitter and follow the court case that you've been kind of enjoying lately.
I mean,
did that start with because there was plenty of Balco and Marion and Barry stuff to follow. Was that the genesis of you loving this reality TV, or was that like a different universe? Like, no, Brad, I was too close to the people. That's completely different.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah, absolutely. Because I look at that as like a news story, and like, I'm not really down with the news stories. As you were saying, my accident has been reported differently wherever you look. Yep. And I feel that that's kind of done. And I've seen this through a lot of the trials that I do watch. I see it, how it's played out in the courtroom, and then I see how it's played out in the public sphere. And it's so weird, man. It's like, no one said that. Like, how are you, whatever. So I always look at them differently. The reality TV that started, like when reality TV started, I remember watching the very first Big Brother, which another season is coming in July. People, get on my Twitter. Let's talk. But so I started watching that stupid show as we were heading to Sydney for the Olympics. And I remember they were like, yeah, you can pay 99 cents a month to watch them in the house, do what they do. It'll be raw. It'll be cool. And I'm like, 99 cents. That's ridiculous. Now they're like, it's $35. I'm like, what a deal. Let's sign up. But yeah, I sit there all summer, watch these people eat bologna sandwiches. And then it's weird after you meet them, because you're like, well, I've seen you eat and I've seen you sleep. Like, it's a little awkward, right? But yeah, I love reality TV because it's so not real, but you look at it and you go, my life is really not that.
We're pretty normal. Exactly.
Totally.
Tom, we don't have anything going on here.
Not that we have no problems. My friends are normal. I thought they were wackadoodles, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know why I love it. I just do. I get a kick out of these people acting like assholes in front of the entire world. Oh, am I allowed to say that word? Sorry about that. Okay, bleep.
So we got to talk CSU Rams for a moment. First of all, why did you transfer to Fort Collins after such a successful start to your college career? And then with your husband, and I was actually, I knew Tom out on the field there before he transferred from CSU over to CU and then had an amazing career. How does that work out on game day when you two are sitting down together to watch the Rams and the Buffs go at it? So first of all, why the transfer? And then let's get into the family dimensions there.
Sure. So the transfer, I was done swimming. I had quit. I'd retired. I had a lot of health problems. I was told at 19 years old, I would never have children. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this swimming thing. University of Arizona did not have my major. So I wanted to actually, my second language is sign language because I'm very dyslexic. And reading English is hard, so I couldn't read a foreign language, really. So sign language is my second language. Learned that at U of A, which I'm so thankful for. And I do love the school, love the people. I wanted to teach high school biology to deaf students. So I went to CSU to get my teaching degree. When I was there doing like the, look around the campus thing, I ran into John Matos, who's the head swim coach. He's like, Ames, I didn't know you were swimming for me. I didn't hear any of that. I'm like, because I'm not, John. And this was the weirdest conversation. It took a little longer than what I'm going to tell you, but it changed my life, right? He really, truly did. He goes, well, what do you mean you're not going to swim for me? I'm like, John, I'm done. Like, I'm over it. I'm done. And he said, okay, well, how about this? How about you give me a semester? Give me one semester. If you like it, please keep swimming. But if you don't, you can go ahead and quit and I'll pay for the rest of your year schooling.
There you go.
I've repeated several times. I'm not smart, but I know the mathematics.
That's an easy one.
It's a great one. Yeah. So I'm like, I'll swim for you. First swim meet, I came like hundredths of a second from breaking an American record. I'm like, well, this is fun, John. Thank you so much.
I think we can do this.
Yeah, right. I might enjoy it again. So that's what happened, right? It was just a different team. It wasn't boys and girls. It was just the women. And there was something different about it. And I just really loved it. So that's why I transferred. My husband, like you said, he went to school to play baseball and he went to San Diego State. Then he wanted to get back into football. So he transferred to CU, played there, won a national championship, blah, blah, Super Bowl rings, blah, blah. But when we go to the CU CSU game, we had a contest. We don't anymore because it's kind of funny. We had a deal, like one of our first times going to the CU CSU game. We were like, we're going to see who can get the best tickets from the school. So he calls CU and he's like, hey, Tom Ruin here. Just wondering, Ames and I want to go to the game. They're like, great. We've got some great seats. They're up in the fourth level, $250 a pop. Right? I call CSU the better school. I'm like, hey guys, Tom and I want to go to the game. Oh my God, we're rolling out the red carpet. You're going to get a parking spot right by where you need to go in. You're going to sit in the president's box. Everything is free for you. Whatever you want, we're going to bring you on the field. Literally, Tom rolled his eyes and he was like, yep, typical. So anyway, CSU also knows how to treat their alumni, right? And so now Tom, every year we go in the president's box. He wears this stupid CU shirt. Everyone tries to get him to change. They understand that he's just a stubborn dork and he will never change. So there he is in the president of CSU's box wearing his CU stuff. Anyway, we are the better school and he knows that, but it can get ugly. I am not a good loser, but I'm a horrible winner. So when we win, it is awful for him. That whole week before the game, we don't even talk. It's awful.
Our son-in-law and daughter went to see you. And so game day, we always say, well, we cheer for each other 350-ish days a year, but there are 2 days we don't. And it works out pretty well. They're good kids. All right. So you've been talking about a new tattoo. Social media. What have we decided? What's happening there? What's the update? Did you get it? Have you dialed it in? What are we doing here?
Haven't got it yet, but I know what I'm going to do. So, I've got my dog's paw print, and it says "A piece of me went with you." I have it on my arm, on my right wrist. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this arm. So I want to do on the front, it's going to be mountains and evergreen trees. And I also live in Arizona, so we'll also have some saguaro and stuff. My grandfather, who came here from Holland, was so proud to be an American. And on each shoulder, he had a tattoo. So I'm going to take those and girlify it and put them on as well. And then I'm going to get the nicknames that my parents call me. I'm going to have them write it out. And then I'm going to get that put on as well. So it's going to take a minute. Sure. Yeah. Tom and I were going to get our rings tattooed. This is a story you'll love because he's like, I can't wear a ring. I'm like, well, it's fine. We'll get him tattooed. He goes, great. So we've been married 5 years. People are at a party at our house and someone had a ring tattoo. Well, right as the music dies down, everyone gets quiet. I'm like, babe, when are we going to get our rings tattooed? So now everyone's looking at us. Tom, in true Tom fashion, goes, yeah, that's a little too permanent for me. So I'm going to pass. I mean, the girls were all like, are you okay? The guys were laughing. I'm like, you're a toolbox. Like, you need to stop that. So anyway, maybe I'll get the ring tattooed just for me.
Well, and you mentioned the left wrist. Was that the very first tattoo? Tell us a little bit about that. I can see it. Other people can't. I'm fascinated by that. Was that the first one?
No, my first one almost cost me $40 million. It was the Olympic rings on my ankle. But the one that's on my left wrist, it's a phoenix, obviously for, rising from the ashes, also living in Arizona. Underneath the phoenix, is the last time my heart rate went wonky in my accident when I was dying. And then it goes into my normal sinus rhythm and it just goes around my wrist.
Folks, so you can't see this, but this is super cool.
Yeah, I'll put it, you know what? I'll go ahead and I will put, if you want to just check out, I'm not private or anything. I'll put it on the Twitter at Amy Van Dyken and you can see it.
Perfect.
But yeah, so I look at this sometimes and I'm like, don't pout. You're fine. It can be worse. Wow. So yeah, I've got that one. I've got, on my back, I've got a wheelchair person lifting a barbell overhead and she's got a little ponytail. On my right shoulder, I've got a turtle that's like got angel wings. And I have a very bad mistake on my left hip. That was a college drunken thing. But yeah, the Olympic rings, that's pretty interesting. So let me just...
Yeah.
It's kind of like a rite of passage, right? But I got mine exactly done, like with the rings in the USA, exactly how it was done. The same size, everything on my ankle. Well, Coca-Cola pays $40 million in the 96 games to be the official beverage, the only beverage that can use the Olympic rings. Well, I did the milk ad, right? And they airbrushed that thing to the good Jesus, except for my leg that was up that had the Olympic rings on it. So now I'm on a billboard in Times Square with the milk mustache underwater, rings hanging out. And I mean, the calls that my agent was handling at that moment were not good. So the Olympic Committee, they were coming after me for $40 million. They were going to have it removed. They were going to sue my tattoo artist, Olympic gold medals, all taken away, all the things. My agent, Janie Miller, who was my agent at the time, still a dear friend, she worked a deal. So now all those Olympians that are drinking milk at the Olympic Training Center, you're welcome. And this is the only officially licensed tattoo by the United States Olympic Committee.
Well, and I'm stunned by that story because I don't have a tattoo, but if I were in the Olympics, I would have that tattoo. Like you said a rite of passage. That's exactly, was it just the fact that you were so good and so you ended up on this billboard that caused the problem? Or is this something that happens all the time with athletes?
Well, it can happen all the time. And this is what I tell all the new Olympians, change it a little bit, just enough so that it's not a direct copy. So, if you can make, one ring have like a little line going out or just something silly. But yeah, they saw me because again, I was taking away from Coca-Cola by doing a milk ad with the rings. And even though no one noticed they were upset.
Wow.
So there you go.
Wow.
Now, when you see that, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's a $40 million picture right there.
All right. Last one, Amy. Any final words of wisdom? Just stuff I haven't teed up. You've done 1 billion interviews. You're in the sportscasting world, so you're asking questions all the time. Anything that I haven't teed up that you're just thinking, oh, man, I got to get this out there?
No, I think you asked everything. But the one thing that I want people to know is like, when you're having a lot of things going on in your life, remember that everybody else does too. So let's give everybody just a little bit of grace, and understand that because the guy didn't say thank you when you opened the door, it wasn't because he's a jerk. It's because he's got something going on. Yeah. So give him a little bit of grace and don't be like Amy Van Dyken and say, you're welcome. Next time I'll roll out the red carpet. I did that once. I'm so mortified.
You're not
mortified.
alone.
I cannot thank you enough for having me. You are a pleasure. I am so excited to continue following your podcast because this is really cool. People, awesome. You are lucky you found it early.
Well, thank you so much. This is great. Appreciate it, Amy.
Thank you so much.
The timing of this was fun as we'd asked Amy to join us as a guest. And then the very next day, someone tweeted out a question about top athletes and who you'd love to hear from, unrelated to us completely. And her name was immediately mentioned. What an honor to hear her story and her insights today. Thanks for tuning into the #1 podcast for health and wellness coaching. If you enjoy the podcast, you might also enjoy our free weekly, what we call the Catalyst 5. It's 5 brief tips and tools to help enhance the 4 cornerstones of our health and wellness. Those 4 cornerstones being move, fuel, rest, and connect. And then number 5, you're like, Brad, that's 4, and it's the Catalyst 5. You got it. There are a few contemplative thoughts in there, some things to reflect on in the midst of your busy day that we hope get you thinking a little bit. The link to access that, if you're interested, is provided in the podcast description. Next week's episode features a hidden gem of one of our most popular shows ever over the 230 plus episodes. No hints as to who it is, except to say you'll never use the phrase breathe easy again. As always, feel free to reach out to us with any questions about your current or future coaching career, results@catalystcoachinginstitute.com, or you can tap into additional health, wellness, and performance resources, catalystcoachinginstitute.com. Now it's time to be a catalyst. This is Dr. Brad Cooper of the Catalyst Coaching Institute. I'll speak with you soon on another episode of the Catalyst Health, Wellness, and Performance Coaching Podcast, or maybe over on the YouTube coaching channel.